President, you said you didn't honor first responders today, but you pardoned hundreds of people who assaulted first responders. Why did you do that?
Yeah, why would you say that, Mr. President? Saying I love first responders while pardoning those who assaulted their colleagues is a bit, shall we say, f***ed up.
No, I pardon people that were assaulted themselves.
What? Their fist was assaulted by the nose of the innocent first responder that they punched?
They were assaulted by our government. I pardoned J6 people who were assaulted by our government.
Bro, doublespeak much. It's such a weird, royally messed up world that we are living in at the moment. We need Jesus. No, wait. These Christians need Jesus.
We're going to release our great hostages that didn't do, for the most part, they didn't do stuff wrong.
We need Jesus. I think for real.
All right, let's talk about this. President Trump has just, on his way to honor first responders, defended his decision to pardon criminals who assaulted those very same first responders during the January 6th Capitol riot. The irony here is staggering. How can a president claim to support law enforcement while excusing violent attacks against them? So much for the party of law and order, huh? Let's briefly break this down. The January 6, 2021 Capitol riot was one of the darkest days in modern American history. It began with a rally where Trump repeated baseless claims about a stolen election. Shortly after, a mob stormed the Capitol in an attempt to stop the certification of Joe Biden's electoral victory. What followed was chaos. Rioters breached security barriers, vandalized property, and attacked law enforcement officers who were outnumbered and overwhelmed. 140 officers were injured that day. Officers were beaten with flagpoles, sprayed with chemical irritants, and crushed in doorways. The attack resulted in multiple brutalities, including that of Officer Brian Sicknick, who suffered 2 strokes after being assaulted. This wasn't a protest, it was an insurrection fueled by lies and violence.
I pardoned J6 people who were assaulted by our government. That's who assaulted. And they were treated unfairly, and what I did was a great thing for humanity. They were treated very, very unfairly. There's never been an incident like it.
What absurdity. So Trump claims the rioters were the ones assaulted. But what about the first responders who were brutally attacked while defending democracy? Your democracy. Let me give you 3 examples, just 3 examples of violent crimes committed by Trump's so-called victims. Robert Palmer, convicted of assaulting police officers with a fire extinguisher, wooden plank, and a metal pole. He received a 63-month prison sentence before being pardoned.
For the most part, they didn't do stuff wrong.
Then we have Kyle Young. He helped restrain Officer Michael Fanone while another rioter used a stun gun on him repeatedly, causing him to suffer a heart attack and traumatic brain injury. And then we've got Thomas Webster, a former Marine and NYPD officer who attacked Capitol Police with a metal flagpole and tackled an officer to the ground. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison before receiving clemency. And these are just 3 cases out of over 1,000. Many of which involved assaults on law enforcement during the riot, and all but 14 were completely pardoned. But even they, the 14 that were left, they had their sentences reduced.
And what I did was a great thing for humanity.
So since Trump won't recognize the real victims, the first responders who put their lives on the line that day, let's do his job for him. Again, we have Officer Michael Fanone. He was dragged into the crowd, beaten unconscious with pipes and flagpoles, and repeatedly tased in the neck. This poor man, this hero, suffered a heart attack and traumatic brain injury. And now, those who did that to him, pardoned. They're fine. They're the real victims.
No, I pardoned people that were assaulted themselves.
Then you've got Officer Daniel Hodges. He was crushed in a doorway as rioters pushed against him while shouting obscenities. His face was bloodied and he struggled to breathe. And then we've got Brian Sicknick, sprayed with chemical irritants during the riot. He died later from 2 strokes, with no doubt these events contributing. And Trump sees him as the criminal. And now we come full circle. On the 9th of February 2025, President Trump visited first responders, shook hands, posed for photos, and praised their bravery, all while defending those who attacked their colleagues just 4 years ago. How can someone honor first responders while excusing violence against them? This isn't leadership. This is hypocrisy at its worst.
I pardon J6 people who were assaulted by our government.
So here we are. Trump claims that his pardons are great for humanity, but what about justice for those who risked their lives defending the Capitol, defending the United States, defending democracy? What about accountability for those who try to overturn democracy through violence? You can't have it both ways. This isn't just about January 6th, it's about what kind of world we want to live in, what kind of world we want our children growing up in. Do we stand with those who protect our democracies or those who endanger our protectors? Right now, you are either on the right side of history or the wrong side. There is no way in the future that historians are going to look at this moment and see it as some nuanced position. It's not. What Trump has just done with pardoning these criminals, of making out that the actual victims are the criminals, is repulsive. It's disgusting.